A top National Security Council Middle East official, Brett McGurk, is in Israel today, meeting with the Prime Minister and, of course, the Defense Minister. This as President Biden is increasingly at odds with Netanyahu's insistence on a ground offensive in Rafah, which the White House has warned would jeopardize the lives of more than 1 million displaced Palestinians living there, as well as jeopardize the hostage talks. As a member of Israel's war cabinet, retired General Benny Gantz, widely viewed, according to my reporting, as a potential interim successor to Netanyahu, said there are new efforts to revive the hostage negotiations, and we believe that is going to happen in Paris in the next couple of days, with Bill Burns from the CIA and his colleagues and his counterparts. Joining us now, NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter, who was in Jerusalem for us, and Ambassador Alon Pinkas, former advisor to Israeli Prime Ministers Ehud Barak and Shimon Peres, and former Israeli Consul General in New York. So, Molly, you just spoke with a woman. She was held hostage by Hamas after October 7th, of course, and she was released in November, but her American husband is still being held. Tell us about her story, her experiences.
Andrea, that's right. And we also just learned from our colleagues at the White House, according to a senior administration official, that Brett McGurk, while he is here, you mentioned his visit, of course, he is also meeting with families of the hostages. And this comes as the Israeli defense minister said tonight, Andrea, we will expand the authority given to our hostage negotiators. But for families of these hostages, Andrea, that is way too little, too late. Now, Aviva Siegel was released after 51 days. She was taken from Kfar Aza with her husband, Keith. As you mentioned, he is American. He is still being held. And take a listen to what she told me today.
I think that Netanyahu has forgotten about Keith and forgotten to be human and bring the human people back. They need to come back as soon as possible.
And do you think his priorities lie elsewhere?
I think that Bibi Netanyahu is thinking about himself more than thinking about us and thinking about Keith. He needs to think about Keith and get him out as soon as possible.
When you say think about him, you think he's prioritizing the war?
I think so. He needs to stop the war and show us that he's doing something to bring Keith home as soon as possible.
Now, Andrea, she was very clear that a ceasefire, that a stop in fighting is the only way to move hostages around Gaza and the only way to get hostages out. I just want to share one other moment that she shared with me. She said one of the things that will stick with her forever is a young girl who is also being held hostage, came out of the bathroom one day during her 51-day captivity. There was an armed Hamas guard nearby, and this girl looked spooked, came up to Aviva and said, "He touched me." Now, Aviva has testified in front of the Knesset here in Israel about sexual violence, and it is one of the things she says, which worries her about the women and girls still left behind. Andrea?
Yes, and I've heard independently about the pregnancies of some of these victims, which is just horrific, the women who were raped on October 7th and afterwards. Thank you, Molly. Thanks so much for that report. And Ambassador Pinkas, the CIA Director, Bill Burns, expected to be meeting in Paris to hold talks with Qatari, Egyptian, and Israeli officials, his counterparts, trying to reach a deal despite what the Prime Minister has said about negotiations not going forward and putting all sorts of conditions on it. What are you hearing about this? Yeah,
there have been reports in the last 24 hours, Andrea, that there's been some breakthrough. I don't know what a breakthrough means anymore, but that there has been some breakthrough in the negotiations, and everyone was summoned back to Paris to begin again or to continue the negotiations that discontinued last week. And about 10 days ago, Mr. Netanyahu refused to send the Israeli delegation to Paris, and on and on and on. So in that respect, it's consistent with what the former hostage said, and tragically, she also may be right in terms of this not being Netanyahu's priority. In fact, his finance minister, an extremist messianic politician named Bezalel Smotrich, said publicly the other day, the hostages are just not the #1 priority. He said it bluntly, he said it clearly, and he never retracted. Now, the problem, and you know this as well as I, is that a hostage deal will entail at least a 45-day ceasefire. even if you call it cessation of hostilities or by any other name, it's a ceasefire. The Americans, the Biden administration views such a ceasefire as the de facto end of the war in its current format. Mr. Netanyahu knows that his statements about total victory and toppling Hamas and eradicating Hamas will have nothing to show for if the war ends this way. And so this explains part of the hesitancy on the Israeli part.